Paris, hi, great job. I'm glad to see more essays from you. I know you're coming to the end of the course, but I'm glad to see that you are continuing to write, that you are applying all the things you've been learning. So let's get straight into your essay corrections and see what you wrote today. Traditional schooling is out of date, boring, and stifles a child's natural talents. Various professionals have pushed for an education reform. Are there alternatives in the educational system? That says education system. Is traditional education doing more harm than good? Okay. In recent years, some education specialists have suggested changing here, Paris. Check it out. Suggested. Now, suggested is a verb that takes a couple of different structures after it. One of them, the most common one, is suggested plus ing. So, education specialists have suggested changing the traditional model of education. Or you could have said, have suggested that the traditional model of education change. That's another alternative. That's called subjunctive. They're both correct, so you choose which one works for you. This has led to a debate over whether the new methods should be replaced by whether the new methods should be replaced by new alternatives. Doesn't really make sense. Whether these methods should be replaced by new alternatives, I think that's the idea. In the present essay, it's one essay, okay? I shall discuss the new models of education, argue why traditional school is still the best option. Clear, nice, fine. There are many alternatives to traditional school. One of them is the one where children decide the subjects they want to study. Such schools allow children to decide whether they want to study music and painting instead of mathematics and science. This method has led, all right, check it out. Now, has led somebody to do something. This is the structure. If you're not sure, you can clearly use it on the search engine and say structure of lead. So this method has led some children to end up with a basic lack of knowledge, or a lack of basic knowledge, which they will need in their adult life. Another alternative this is strange because you have a singular. Another alternative is those schools in which children are left to decide their own marks. In this case, children might end up with grades that do not correspond to their actual knowledge, leaving them unqualified for doing many things. So be careful. I'm really, really excited that you're trying to do some things that are more advanced, more complex. It's exactly what you should be doing at this point, experimenting, taking risks. However, you should know that the structure here is not correct, okay? Leaving them unqualified to do many things. That's how it should be. And then, of course, there should be some sort of a takeaway. There should be some sort of a summary sentence. So, as a consequence, etc., etc., etc. Okay. In light of these issues, not in the light, the expression is in light of these issues, traditional schools, plural here, remain as the best option. This has been born out of the result of the current education system and the number of Nobel Prizes it has produced over the last 100 years. That's really interesting. Okay. Actually, there is not strong evidence here, singular, because is evidence, and there is not strong evidence, that supports here the failure of traditional institutions. What a good point. Really well done. According to the most recent report of UNESCO, those who claim for a change, you don't really claim for a change. You work for a change, you struggle for a change, you campaign for a change. That would be a great word here. Those who campaign for a change in the educational system are often driven by the desire to do business. You're driven by a desire to do something. So to do business with the new methods rather than a true desire to change what is wrong. To summarize, even if the alternatives to a traditional school can sound attractive to some people, such methods are yet to, I'm glad that you tried this here, but it's not quite accurate. So some methods are yet to prove their effectiveness. That's what you really want to say here. You took some risks, Paris, and that's a great thing to do. That's exactly what you should be doing. Some of the things worked. Some of the risks you took didn't quite work. But that's the best way to grow and improve your English and, you know, try out new things. So well done. Now let's look at your task 1 here. Okay, we have the council expenditures in the UK, 3 regions, 2014. Let's see what you had to say. The pie charts show the council expenditures, plural, because it's not just one, in 3 UK regions in 2014 in terms of percentage in relation to, here instead, 6 categories. And you've said what they are. Well done. That's a very smart thing to do. This way you can make sure that at the very least you have mentioned what the 6 categories are. Overall, it can clearly be seen some common trends. Now here you've got a couple of problems. Number 1, it's not a clear overview. Obviously, there are trends. Otherwise, these wouldn't be here. You need to state at least what one of them are. Secondly, the grammar is wrong. So, clearly, some trends can be seen. Okay? Grammatically, that's how you should write this. Now, in terms of task achievement, what you need to be saying is, well, you need to focus on the 1 or 2 major expenditures in each region. So I would probably say something like, clearly throughout all 3 regions in the UK, education and leisure were the areas with the highest expenditure. Okay, so let's move on to the rest of your task 1. In 2014, education and leisure represented more than 1/4 of the total expenditure in these 3 regions. Now, check it out. When you say it like this, it's as if together they made 1/4, but in fact they made much more. So I would have said that education and leisure represented more than 1/2 together or 1/4 each, because you can see how these little structural words make all the difference in the meaning. Okay? In Yorkshire, education occupied the greatest proportion, while in Derbyshire, leisure received most of the council's money. Community care also occupied an important portion of the council's expenditure in the 3 regions, with approximately 1/8 of the total of Yorkshire and Derbyshire, but half of this in Lancashire. Community care is orange. All right, first of all, now, I mean, forgive me, but I know octave in terms of music. I have never heard octave in my years of teaching IELTS or any other language, any other English language exam. Octave used like this. However, I don't claim to know everything. So I feel like this is the wrong word. I wouldn't have mentioned community care here. Not yet. I still think you should have mentioned Lancashire, which you didn't in this paragraph. I mean, you could have really clearly mentioned that in Lancashire, education and leisure were almost equal at over 1/3 each. Okay, and I would have left community care as one of the secondary options here to discuss, as one of the secondary features. Okay, so let's move on. Expenditure in environment and in other categories was very similar in 3 regions, but with a slight reduction in Yorkshire for environment. Social sciences, on the other hand, presented different figures in each region. As in Yorkshire and Lancashire, were spent about 1/8 of the total in social sciences, and Derbyshire, the expense of for this category were minimum. Okay, again, there's some things going on here that make me not understand this. I have to read it 2 or 3 times to understand it. It doesn't make sense. You need to correct the grammar. You need to correct the vocabulary in order to make it work. I feel like it comes to a sudden end. Now, you wrote something that attempts to be an overview here. It's not enough. Obviously, the overview talks about the trends, but you should tell me what they are. You didn't do that. So as far as task achievement goes, it doesn't really quite reach the minimum with giving an overview, with focusing on what those main trends are. And it does kind of come to a sudden end here. Okay, so looking at the whole thing, it looks like you've mentioned each one of these. I mean, you mentioned other, leisure, you've mentioned social services, education, community care, and environment. But for some of them, you really just mentioned them so briefly that you really couldn't consider it any sort of major development. So do be aware of that. And I must say that I really felt like this came to a sudden conclusion. So think about it in terms of your development of task 1. On the whole, your essays were well done, really. Okay, but because we're talking really about getting that higher score, as high as we can, we're looking at the finer details. So make sure you develop these a little more. It might require writing more than 150 words. It's possible. And, you know, kind of leaving the reader with some sort of a takeaway from the graph. Okay. So good job with these on the whole. Really, honestly, it was a nice attempt. You did a lot of good work. So keep writing, keep improving, keep correcting your essays, keep adding to your error correction list. Don't forget to continue sending them to this email with your new essays so that you can get continuous feedback up until the day of your exam. That's really the best way to keep improving. Honestly, having professional feedback from a trained IELTS tutor. So nice job, keep working, and I'm really, really looking forward to see what you will write next.